Video begins with a shot of a serene, misty lake at dawn. Have you ever had one of those moments where you question what's real? A moment so strange, so unbelievable, that it completely rewrites your understanding of the world. I'm here to tell you a story like that. A story that happened to an ordinary man named Jack, a park ranger who loved the solitude of the deep woods more than anything. His life was simple, predictable, until one fateful evening by the lake. This isn't just a story about a strange encounter. It's about how one act of kindness can change everything forever. Jack had been a ranger in the vast, sprawling forests of the Pacific Northwest for over 20 years. He knew every trail, every ancient tree, every secret clearing. He'd seen bears, cougars, eagles. He thought he'd seen it all. The woods were his home, a place of peace and quiet certainty. But on this particular evening, as the sun bled orange and purple across the sky, that certainty was about to be shattered. He was doing his final patrol around Crystal Lake, a remote body of water rarely visited by tourists, when he heard it. It wasn't the cry of a loon or the splash of a beaver. It was a sound of pure panic, a desperate guttural cry that echoed across the water, followed by a violent thrashing. Jack's ranger instincts kicked in immediately. Someone was in trouble. He grabbed his high-powered binoculars and scanned the lake. The water was choppy, and the fading light made it difficult to see. Then he spotted it. A large, dark shape struggling about 100 yards from shore. It was huge, far too big to be a person. Maybe a bear, or a moose that had wandered too far south. But the sounds it was making, they were disturbingly human-like. Groans of exhaustion and fear that sent a shiver down Jack's spine. Without a second thought, he untied his small patrol boat and started the motor. Adrenaline coursed through him. Whoever or whatever it was drowning. As he got closer, the sheer size of the creature became apparent. It was massive, covered in dark, matted fur, with long, powerful limbs flailing weakly against the cold water. Its head kept dipping below the surface, then coming back up, gasping for air. Jack's mind was racing. This couldn't be real. The stories, the local legends, the blurry photos, they were all flooding his mind. But there was no time for disbelief. The creature was clearly exhausted, its movements growing weaker by the second. Jack carefully maneuvered the boat alongside it. As he got close, a huge hairy hand slapped against the side of the boat, and for a heart-stopping second, Jack looked into a pair of eyes. They weren't the eyes of a bear or an ape. They were deep, intelligent, and filled with sheer terror. In that moment, Jack knew he was face to face with a Bigfoot. His 20 years of training hadn't prepared him for this. There was no protocol for rescuing a Sasquatch, but his humanity took over. He couldn't just let it drown. He cut the engine and grabbed a length of thick rope from his emergency kit. Hey, hold on," he yelled, his voice trembling slightly. He tossed the rope towards the creature. It looked at the rope, then back at him, its large dark eyes filled with a desperate understanding. With a final surge of strength, the creature grabbed the rope. Jack tied the other end to a cleat on the boat and slowly, carefully, began to row towards the shore, towing the enormous being behind him. The weight was immense, and every pull of the oars was a struggle. The creature held on, its breathing ragged. It seemed to understand that Jack was helping. When they finally reached the shallows, the creature let go of the rope and stumbled onto the bank, collapsing in a heap on the muddy shore. It lay there, wheezing, its massive chest rising and falling. Jack watched from the boat, his heart pounding in his chest. He had just saved a legend. The creature, a Bigfoot, a Sasquatch, was real, and it was lying 10 feet away from him. It slowly lifted its head and looked at him. There was no menace in its gaze, only exhaustion and something else. Gratitude. It gave a low rumbling groan, almost like a sigh, then slowly, painfully pushed itself up. It stood for a moment, towering over Jack's small boat, a silhouette against the twilight sky. Then, with a final look back at its rescuer, it turned and vanished into the dense, dark forest. Jack sat there in his boat for what felt like an eternity, the silence of the woods now feeling entirely different. He was drenched in sweat and lake water, his muscles aching. Did that just happen? He looked at the muddy bank where the creature had collapsed. There, clear as day, were 2 massive, unmistakable footprints. He wasn't crazy. It was real. Shaken but strangely calm, he motored back to his ranger station, his mind a whirlwind of confusion and awe. He decided not to report it. Who would believe him? They'd think he'd lost his mind. He'd keep this incredible secret to himself. He went to bed that night, replaying the event over and over, unsure how this would change his life, but knowing, deep down, that nothing would ever be the same again. The next morning, Jack woke up feeling different. The usual aches and pains of a man his age were gone. He felt a surge of energy he hadn't experienced in years. He chalked it up to the adrenaline from the night before and went about his morning routine. He brewed his coffee, stepped out onto his porch, and that's when he saw it. On his doorstep was a pile of something he didn't recognize. It was a collection of strange glowing mushrooms and a variety of herbs he'd never seen before, all neatly arranged on a large piece of bark. He cautiously approached the strange gift. The mushrooms emitted a soft, pulsating blue light, and the herbs had a sweet, earthy aroma. There was also a single, large, beautiful feather, unlike any bird he knew. Where did this come from? Then he remembered the creature from the lake. Could this be a thank you gift? It seemed absurd, but what other explanation was there? Intrigued, and feeling an odd sense of trust, he took the items inside. He was a man of the woods, and he knew a thing or two about plants. After consulting some of his oldest botanical books, he couldn't identify any of them. They were completely unknown to science. Over the next few days, Jack's life began to change in subtle but profound ways. He found that his senses were heightened. He could hear the faintest rustle of leaves from 100 yards away. He could smell a rainstorm approaching long before the clouds gathered. His eyesight became as sharp as a hawk's. At first, he was spooked, but then a sense of wonder took over. He felt more connected to the forest than ever before, as if he was becoming a part of it. The forest wasn't just his workplace anymore. It was speaking to him, and he could finally understand its language. The gifts kept appearing. Every few days he would find something new on his porch. Rare, sweet berries that burst with flavor, smooth river stones that were warm to the touch, and intricate carvings on pieces of wood depicting scenes of the forest. It was a silent, ongoing conversation, an exchange between him and the mysterious creature he had saved. One day, he found a pouch made of woven reeds, and inside was a thick, fragrant sap. On a whim, he rubbed a little on a scar on his hand he'd had since childhood. By the next morning, the scar was completely gone. Jack's life was transformed. He was no longer just a park ranger. He was a guardian, a friend to the forest's oldest and most secret inhabitant. He never saw the Bigfoot up close again, but he felt its presence. Sometimes he'd catch a fleeting glimpse of a large, dark shape moving silently through the distant trees, or hear a low, melodic hum carried on the wind sound he came to recognize as a greeting. His solitary life was now filled with a secret, magical friendship. He had saved a life, and in return, the forest, through its most mysterious child, had given him a new one. Jack's world was bigger, richer, and infinitely more magical than he had ever imagined. He kept his secret, cherishing the quiet wonder that had entered his life, all because of one act of kindness on a twilight lake. What do you think? Was this a gift from a grateful creature, or something else entirely? The world is full of mysteries we may never understand. Thanks for watching our story today. If you enjoyed this journey into the unknown, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next adventure. Until next time, stay curious.